Have you ever hit send on an email and thought, man, I wish this thing could just blast off? Like, literally? Imagine an email that arrives not in your inbox, but in orbit. An email that transcends the ordinary, a digital message propelled by literal rocket fuel. Is there such a thing? Is there a rocket email? Music fades out. Now, before you picture a tiny satellite whizzing around Earth, carrying your latest cat meme, let's unpack this. We're talking about a concept that straddles the line between science fiction and, well, maybe a very niche, very expensive, and very impractical reality. We're not talking about your everyday Gmail or Outlook. We're delving into the world of extreme communication, where the delivery method is as dramatic as the message itself. Think about the sheer volume of emails sent every single day. Billions. Data centers hum, servers strain, and the digital pathways of the internet are constantly flooded. But what if we wanted to bypass all that? What if we needed to send a message that was absolutely, undeniably, unreachable by conventional means? Or, perhaps, a message that needed to arrive somewhere specific, fast, and with a flair that screams, "This is important." That's where the idea of a rocket email starts to take shape. It's not about convenience, it's about the sheer spectacle and potential for a unique delivery system. To understand if this is even remotely possible, we need to consider a few things. First, how do we send data to space? Second, what kind of data could we even send? And third, is there any practical reason to do this, or is it just a wild thought experiment? Let's start with the basics of sending data to space. We've been doing this for decades, of course. Satellites communicate with ground stations using radio waves. Deep space probes send back images and data from millions of miles away. But those are complex, highly specialized systems. Could we adapt that technology to send something as simple as an email? The answer, technically, is yes. We could encode an email message into radio waves and transmit it to a receiver in space. The receiver could be a satellite, a space station, or even a specially designed payload on a rocket. The challenge, however, isn't so much the transmission, but the reception and the purpose. Imagine a small payload, a tiny, ruggedized computer, loaded with an encrypted email message. This payload is attached to a rocket. The rocket launches, reaches orbit, and the payload is deployed. The payload then transmits the email message to a ground station or another satellite. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's where things get complicated. Rockets are expensive. Launching a dedicated rocket just to send an email would be astronomically costly. And the payload itself would need to be designed to withstand the harsh environment of space, including extreme temperatures, radiation, and vacuum. Then there's the issue of bandwidth. Radio waves can carry a lot of data, but the amount of data we can transmit is limited by the available bandwidth and the power of the transmitter. An email message itself is relatively small, but if we wanted to send attachments, like images or videos, the data volume would increase significantly. And what about the receiver? We'd need a reliable receiver in space, capable of capturing the signal and decoding the message. This could be a dedicated satellite, or we could piggyback on an existing satellite network. But that would require coordination and access to those resources. Now, let's talk about the data itself. What kind of email could justify such an extravagant delivery method? Perhaps it's a message that needs to be delivered to a remote location, a place where conventional communication is unreliable or non-existent. A scientific research station in Antarctica, for example, or a remote island without internet access. Or maybe it's a message that needs to be delivered with absolute certainty, a message that cannot be intercepted or tampered with. In a world where cybersecurity is a constant concern, a rocket email could offer a level of security that traditional email cannot. But the most compelling reason for a rocket email might be symbolic. Imagine a message of peace, a message of hope, sent to the entire world from space. A message that transcends borders and languages, a message that reminds us of our shared humanity. Of course, the practical challenges are immense. The cost, the complexity, the logistics, all would need to be addressed. But the potential for a unique and powerful communication tool is undeniable. Let's consider the technology that would be required. First, we'd need a reliable and affordable launch system. SpaceX's reusable rockets have significantly reduced the cost of launching payloads into space, but it's still a costly endeavor. Second, we'd need a robust and compact payload. This payload would need to include a computer, a transmitter, an antenna, and a power source. It would also need to be designed to withstand the harsh environment of space. Third, we'd need a reliable receiver in space. This could be a dedicated satellite, or we could use an existing satellite network. Fourth, we'd need a secure encryption system to protect the message from interception. And finally, we'd need a way to track the payload and ensure that the message is delivered to the intended recipient. Now, let's go a step further and imagine a dedicated rocket email service. You'd log into a website, compose your message, attach any files, and select your delivery options. You'd then pay a fee, which would cover the cost of the launch, the payload, and the transmission. Your email would be encrypted and uploaded to a server. A small, dedicated rocket would be launched, carrying your payload. The payload would be deployed in orbit, and your message would be transmitted to a receiver on Earth. You'd receive a confirmation email when your message is delivered. This might sound like science fiction, but the technology is already here. We have the rockets, the satellites, and the communication systems. What we lack is the infrastructure and the demand. Of course, there are alternatives. We could use existing satellite communication systems to send emails to remote locations. But that would require access to those systems and the necessary expertise. We could also use drones to deliver physical messages to remote locations. But that would be limited by the range and payload capacity of the drones. A rocket email, on the other hand, would offer a unique combination of speed, security, and spectacle. It would be a message that arrives with a bang, a message that cannot be ignored. And let's address the elephant in the room. The sheer environmental impact of launching a rocket to send an email. Rockets burn fuel, release emissions, and contribute to space debris. A rocket email service would need to be designed to minimize its environmental impact. This could include using more sustainable fuels, designing reusable rockets, and developing methods for removing space debris. The concept of a rocket email is a fascinating blend of technology, imagination, and a touch of madness. It's a reminder that the boundaries of communication are constantly being pushed, and that even the most outlandish ideas can sometimes become reality. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.